Really? Ah, okay. Hello. Well. Am I live? Looks like I am. We always ask that when we go live. It's quite funny. I guess I do it too. This is my first time here on YouTube. I usually go through StreamYard. I'm not going through StreamYard right now. Anyway, I shall wait just a little bit to see. Oh, hello. One person's in. Hello. Yeah, see if anyone comes in. I've been meaning to do a video at home. It's too hot to go outside and protest. Hello, Sir Crypidus. Hello, Jersey Jan. Hello. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. It's a bit too hot right now in Clearwater to be out there. I went out earlier today looking for Scientos. My new roomie and I took a little trip over to Oldsmar because I heard that sometimes at the flea market, the Scientos set up a little personality test table. So I hadn't ever been over to the flea market anyway. So I went over there to check it out, and we did not find any Scientos. So that was good. Bought some junk because that's what happens. Bought some good stuff and bought some junk, and it was great. But it's too hot to be protesting outside a flag right now. And I've wanted to do this little like tales from the crypt about my dad and explain about having a Scientological father. What it's like to grow up with someone's father who's a Scientologist. It's not normal. It's not regular. Like everyone says, well, your dad loved you. And it's really hard for me to understand where they're even seeing that, because my father never showed an ounce of love. Scientology draws out of you your human emotions and your loving instinctual reactions. So family are just other thetans that we've been with before. We'll be with them again in another life. We'll see you again. It's not a big deal. We're just in these meat bodies right now, sharing this chunk of time in this mess right now. We'll see you again, maybe on another planet, maybe not this one. So they take away this sense of they strip a boundary away, or they put one in place. They strip away a boundary and they put up a wall. That's what happens. And you don't react as family members to each other as loving. I mean, yeah, we hugged and kissed. Oh, hi, Merry Christmas and Happy Birthday and all that. But it wasn't, I love you. It was none of that. It wasn't huggy. We only hugged each other when we hadn't seen each other for a while. Other than that, there was no, warmth, personal human warmth, basic human warmth. So, and little daughters, we all have that instinctual lizard brain of loving our fathers. We want to be daddy's little girl. Well, never got to have that, unfortunately. My dad left a huge void in that place because of his beliefs, which was very unfortunate, because I tried the past 4 years that I was here with him, taking care of him. I tried to break through and make him maybe open up, see if there was a little bit of humanity left in there. Like, did they leave anything? Is there one auditing session that didn't strip everything out of you, Dad? But no, unfortunately, he dropped his body and left this earth, and I will always feel unloved by the man. And it's unfortunate, because if you'll notice, a lot of the second gems, we want our dads. We want our daddies. That could cause issues, I guess. I never had daddy issues. Everyone I dated was always a little younger than me, but still, it causes issues either way when you grow up without your father as a girl. Especially like my dad, when I was in touch with him, when I did spend time with him, those rare moments in my youth, I noticed how he wasn't like other dads. The way he treated me wasn't like the way Peter treated Jane, my neighbors. Like the dad was always, he bought his daughter a bike and taught her how to ride the bike, and he took her to places and would buy her things and just be a dad. He was always there for her. And I don't know what that was like. I just don't. I didn't get that ever. And that's fine. That's just what happened. What can you do? That's life. But at the time, I was quite upset about it. So Scientology, my dad paid a lot of money. He went all the way up the bridge. He even did all the L's. And the L's are some other courses or whatnot, rundowns or whatever, that are really expensive. And apparently with those, he really knows how not to come back to this prison planet. Once he dropped his body, he knew exactly where to go, what to do. So he wouldn't come back to Tegiak. He belonged somewhere else. This place was just gross. And he was going to go to a planet where everything was decent, where there was no war, there was no insanity, and where everyone was decent. That's what he was looking for, which, it's not a bad thing to look for. But how about we try that on this planet where we are right here, right now? I'm sure we can at least try. So my dad didn't have any human emotional love in him. And every now and then, though, he would look at me and go, "But you're my daughter." And I think he was saying that so he could hear himself say it, because I knew it already. I was pissed he didn't treat me like a daughter. But it was like he had to tell himself, like, "Oh, but you're my daughter. Yeah, this is happening right now. And I'm not in agreement with it, but you're my daughter, so I should go along with it." It was just, it's a very different way of thinking. It's a very different way of being with your dad. It's not great. And then on my birthdays, like the last 4 years, I've been here physically with him on my birthdays. And he specifically would ignore me on those days. He made sure he would never mention my birthday or anything about the day. Just what's for dinner tonight, or, just the regular, normal, everyday stuff. And I would just kind of sit back like, he knows it's my birthday because I told him last week that today would be my birthday. Like, why? Christmas, same. He wouldn't buy presents. I mean, if he had to. But he would just wait for me to make a meal, make some turkey, mashed potatoes and stuff, and a trifle. And that was it. And then he would go back to sitting on the couch, watching Friends or whatever. And that was it. Christmas is over. There was no enjoyment in anything. When I first came to Florida, I asked him, I'm like, "I want to go see alligators. I want you to show me alligators. I need to see alligators." And he's like, "Huh, you like those kinds of things, don't you? You like looking at animals." And just the way he asked me, I was like, is this person a human? Like, what? And then, of course, years later, when I found out more about Scientology, LRH kind of made fun of cultures and groups of people that worshipped places, lakes, caves, trees. He thought they were just mushy-brained people when you worship things like that. And when you like to look at animals and landscapes, why would you want to just go somewhere and stand there and look at mountains? It's just rocks. Well, because they sucked all the creativity and beauty from out of him, that even he couldn't see it anymore. And anyway, I made him take me to go see some alligators. I don't know where he took me. It was like some dive bar somewhere in St. Petersburg or something that had alligators in the back in this pool. It was a bit disappointing, but I got to see alligators. But the way my dad treated that whole thing was like, huh, you like that kind of thing, don't you? You like to look at animals. Well, yeah, I'm kind of human and I like things on this planet. I like to look at beautiful landscapes and trees and flowers and stuff. And no, I mean, my dad always talked about he'd been around the world like 25 times before he was 23. I'm sure he saw a lot of the planet. I'm sure he saw a lot of things that were really interesting. Did he not find any of that interesting at all? What a waste of a life. But he thinks he lived an amazing life. Well, he did go around the world a couple of times. He worked on the ship, so good for him. And then he joined the Apollo. Anyway, we'll get into that. But back to, having a Scientology dad has been really hard, has not been easy. And he passed. Don't cry. He passed recently, so I've been finding, when your parent passes, like when my mom died, it took weeks of going through pictures and jewelry and her clothes and just things, people. In the end, it just comes down to things. My dad hardly left any things. I mean, this apartment and the ugly furniture in it from the 70s, I got that, and I found his wedding ring. I found like 2 or 3 pictures of him and his wife, and they're mainly from the day they got married at the Sea Org place. They got married in LA, I think, at one of the Scientology buildings. You usually find photographs and stuff like that left behind. Well, my dad left nothing behind. His second wife, Shirley, he was with her for 36 years, and she died of a brain tumor, which he said she pulled it in because her ethics were out. That's a horrible thing to say about someone you supposedly love for 36 years that you've shared your entire life with. So she passed of a brain tumor. And my cousin, the other Scientologist, immediately flew from Clearwater to Vegas to dispose of all of his wife's belongings. Once you drop the body, you're not here anymore, and your stuff doesn't mean anything to anyone anymore. You're gone. You're done. They got rid of everything. They got rid of everything of hers. She had an amazing doll's house that would have been something to hand down to my daughter at least. No, they didn't even think of that. Got rid of everything of my stepmother. Everything. Photographs, anything that she was ever in, anything. They got rid of everything about her. She was having an emotional affair online with one of her ex-boyfriends on her computer. They were chatting back and forth. My cousin found that once Shirley died. So that's why my dad said that Shirley's ethics were out, because she was having thoughts about another man and she was having bad thoughts about my dad. That's why she had a brain tumor. She pulled it in. That's a horrible thing to say about someone. It's dreadful. But that's what he said about his wife of 36 years. They got rid of everything belonging to Shirley. All gone. Picked him up and moved him to Clearwater. So they've got just a couple of pictures. That's it. I've just been throwing away ugly old stuff and going through his clothes and his shoes. There really wasn't that much to go through my dad's stuff than it was my mom's. But what he did leave me, funnily enough, because I used to ask him questions all the time, especially watching SPTV. I'd go watch something, Aaron would have someone on and they would talk about something, so I'd come out and ask my dad about a question about it, and he wouldn't really answer most of my questions. He was a Scientologist, and as we know in Alohatology, what's the first rule of Scientology? We don't talk about Scientology. So it was really hard for me to get. When he felt the need to share something with me, he would. But when I would ask him about it, that was I could hardly get any information out of him. And of course, when I watched Janice Gillum Grady a lot of her stories coincide with when my dad was in the Sea Project and the Sea Org. So I would come out and go, "Hey, do you remember a guy called Neville Chamberlain?" "Oh yeah, I remember that guy." I'm like, "Yeah, well, he's still going. He's doing really good, and he's a real nice guy. I just watched a video about him." Then my dad's face would go, and it would be instant shut off. And it wouldn't be me saying anything bad about Scientology, but immediately he would go to defense. I'm going to attack you if you say anything else. It's like, I'm not saying anything bad about Scientology. I'm just trying to share it because that's all your life was. So I want to have some connection with you, Father. So he didn't leave much behind, other than the wisdom, the Scientology wisdom he gave me, which I will hopefully be sharing with you. Like OT powers. They can move clouds. That's a thing. Apparently it's a thing, because I heard one of the other second gems mention it. And I'm like, oh, so that wasn't just a my dad thing. That's a thing they tell them they can do. My dad did believe that we'll create the weather. If a hurricane comes through your area, it's because all of those people living there caused that with their minds. So the one thing my dad did leave me is this binder. And it's got all this handwritten stuff. And it's basically a story of him in Scientology. And he started in the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. I didn't know he had this. He's even got a picture of this thing, which is orders of the day. Commendation to the entire new engine room officers and crew, each for his part in bringing engine room from doubt to emergency in under 72 hours. They are MSM, now Lieutenant Mark Sabine. No idea who that is. Anyone know who he is? Mark Sabine. Wiper, now WO, W-O, Bob Scheckler. No clue. Engineer of the Watch, now CPO, Jeff Walker. Engineer of the Watch, now CPO, Malcolm Neiman. S&D, now Chief Petty Officers Carl Rosenkrantz and Sam Fullerton. There's my dad. Electricians, now Chief Petty Officers. So they went from electricians to Chief Petty Officers overnight because they moved the whole engine room from doubt up to emergency. Bert Rousseau, Bob Pryor, and Jerry McClarty. LRH, Commodore. He's even got that in there. Like, he left this whole little binder for me, and it's all handwritten. I've read half of it. I haven't read the whole thing. But basically, it's his story about Scientology. So it starts off right in the back talking about Scientology, right? I mean, he had a daughter. I don't think he remembers that he ever had a daughter because... And you know how you can tell someone wrote something on a different day than from the day that this thing was written? He wrote on the back of page 1, there's a paragraph about me, a paragraph. Isn't that nice? So, Scientology is really annoying to me. It broke my dad. And because of that, my dad broke my mom. And the rest wasn't great. So I want to share this with you because it's really interesting. It's really interesting. And I think I'm just going to start reading. I was going to talk a bit about Jack Parsons, but I might do that another day because I want to talk about how a lot of Scientology all came from the occult, came from black magic. It all came from the Ordo Templi Orientis, Aleister Crowley's little gig through Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons took over. Anyway, we'll get into that another day. But I want to start reading you guys some of this just so you can see what it's like having a father who decided, I have this kid, but she's in my way. She's Dev T. She's developed traffic. I need to go on ship and do more Scientology, and she's in my way. So let's get rid of her and her mother, and let's do this instead. So I'm going to start reading some of this, and you may fall asleep. And I will go through the chat in a little bit once I read some, but I want to start getting through some of this because it's really interesting. All right, guys. I would like to begin with a short bio. Before my advent into Scientology, the completion of the grades, and then to the Sea Org, where I sailed with LRH. We became good friends, and I also enjoyed the rest of the family, Quentin, Arthur, Suzette, and most of all, Ron's wife, Mary Sue, the other Gilead lady. Mary Sue was one of the nicest people I have ever known, who was completely understood where I came from. I don't know what that means. My dad was from Glasgow. Mary Sue was American. So I don't know what he means. Who's completely understood where I came from. Anyway, so for some reason, my dad always told me that he and Mary Sue got along really well. I was born in the east side of Glasgow, Scotland, totally surrounded by factories and not the most pleasant environment. Many people have found a way to escape the humdrum of such an existence by engaging in sports, taking it to a profession that enabled them to leave. So they became good at something in life, like sports or drinking, basically, in Glasgow. That's basically one or the other. Rugby and drinking. It's those two things. My method was to study the academics of drums. That was my first love. He was a drummer. He was a musician. And apparently by the age of 14, he was a professional. I had started making small amounts of money by the age of 14. And by the age of 18, was full professional. My second love was the ships. So eventually I took my drums to sea. My many trips to America, I made many friends, one in particular, Jack French, who was a well-known musical director. Apparently he was Liza Minnelli's musical director. Jack was the one who convinced me to make the change. So in 1961, I got married. My wife and I arrived in Washington, D.C., met Jack, who got me fixed up with a band, playing shows in the Casino Royale. Later, I was in a club called the Bayou, where my introductions to Scientology began. Dun, dun, dun. I was approached by a local drummer and had a very interesting conversation. He asked to meet me in the foyer at the club. He would give me a book. He gave him a book. I met him and he handed me the book called Dianetics. This was the beginning of a new era. We played 6 nights a week from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. So was home before 2:30 a.m. I spent the whole night reading that book I had never heard of before, but was wondering if I had come to this country to find this treasure. My dad was searching. He really was searching. He was looking for he was looking for utopia, basically. Louis Bellucci was the person who gave me the book. Louis Bellucci, who's that? If anyone knows who Louis Bellucci is. Louis Bellucci was the person who gave me the book with written instructions how to follow up if I felt so inclined. The following day, I paid a visit to the address. It was in a seedy area of DC, which did not impress me. But into the building I ventured. The result was my signing up to complete the grades, which would take a year from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., 5 days a week. Okay, so just imagine. You've got a wife at home who's new in this country. She's from England. She's all alone. She doesn't have that many friends. And you are going from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to the org, to Scientologies, And then after that, you go to work all night playing music. So you're not home until 2:30 a.m. And your little wife's sitting there bored out of her brains and spending all the money. Yeah, my mom was starting to get a little ticked off. The cost for the whole course was $350. And that was a lot of money back then. As I started the study in 1962, anyone who found the game prior to 63 was credited as a founding Scientologist. See the narcissism? He's got to give himself a little plug right there. I started really early, so I'm special, okay? So there's his plug for himself. Having completed the grades, I was certified as a grade 4 release and class 4 auditor. I continued playing drums for the next few years, but having this yearn for ships, I decided to join the Sea Org. My first marriage ended in 66. This is all he said about my mom. He didn't, have you heard? He hasn't even mentioned her. My first marriage ended in 66. I was born in 65. And in 68, I met the wonderful woman who was to become my wife, and we formed the Sea Org. Shirley was her name. Now, and my name's Cheryl. So my dad, in his later years, while I was the past 4 years, basically was calling me Shirley the whole time. And all I could think of was the movie Airplane. Me dressed as a nun going up to him and slapping him across the face. You picked the wrong week to call me Shirley. Anyway, that's just, sorry, an inside my head thing. Never mind. I digress. So yeah, Shirley, he married her, and I'll tell you about how he met her one day. He shot her some Cupid Scientology Homo Novus arrows through her heart. And that's how he did a special Scientology, we've met in another life, to her, and she fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And she didn't like me. Shirley didn't like me at all. Oh, well. So we started making plans for the journey to a new life. As my family were in England, Shirley and I would visit my mother and sister in Portsmouth before continuing to the Sea Org ship. At that time, it was called the Royal Scotsman. At this time, Shirley and I were engaged and would marry in 68. So off we went to England, then to St. Hill, the original home of Ron Hubbard, of course. Ron was not in the home at that time, but we made the arrangements where and when to join the ship. Given the appropriate day, everything was set for us to leave England and become crew members. We were excited to begin our trip to the cruise to paradise. What do you think? You're going on like a galactic freaking Fifth Element trip to... Ay. What a... Oh, okay, here we go. This is my dad. This is his Glaswegian coming out. What a piece of shit it turned out to be. We were told to fly to Denmark and join the ship in Copenhagen. All this was, of course, at our expense. Arriving in Denmark, we found our way to the Scientology org in Copenhagen. Imagine our stupor and being told the ship did not sail into Denmark. The info we got from St. Hill was bullshit. Bullshit. It's cute, huh? Not only did they send us to the wrong port, but to the effing country, to the wrong effing country. And he wrote fucking there. All Scotsman, all day. As I had left some money in a bank in England, I had a bank here contact the other bank to send me enough money to make it to reach Spain. The org in Copenhagen contacted the ship about our position. As the proper date of our arrival was okayed, we were to meet the crew members, render the clock, where they would pick us up and take us to the ship that was anchored out in the bay. After waiting all day, we then found a hotel for the night and returned to the dock where a rep in an office came to find us. Oh, his writing got real wobbly here. To take us out to the so-called floating utopia. At last, we were aboard, and as they say, first impressions are important. Boy, was I shot down. Looking, I saw people were filthy. My dad was a little Lord Fauntleroy. Everything had to be perfect and clean and tidy all the time. OCD, had lots of OCD. So people were filthy and smelly. All the males had beards. This is in the 60s. Remember, beards were like hippie, you were dirty, filthy if you had a beard. You had to be clean shaven back then to be considered hygienic, I guess. All the males had beards. The scene was so bad when the females... Okay, I'm sorry. The misogyny that this man had in his heart was just... The scene was so bad when the females looked as they also had beards. What the hell is going on here? I asked the two people who appeared to be in charge. They then told me that the ship was in the condition of liability because they had backed into rocks and damaged the propeller and were preparing to go into dry dock to fix the prop. The condition of liability is punishment for the soul died? So, wait. The condition of liability is punishment for the something deed, certain amenities were denied. I don't know what he's writing there, but anyway, certain amenities were denied until the situation was rectified. No one on ship was allowed to bathe or shave. Oh! Now, can you imagine the stink? Oh, God. See, and I remember someone talking about, I think it was Mike Rinder, who talked about on one of his videos, and this is a while ago, going on the Apollo, and there was the room where all the single Sea Org members slept, and it was stinky. It was like the stinkiest room on ship. So you really wanted to find a mate and marry them so you can get your own berthing. You could get your own room away from the stinky room. And my dad didn't like smelly people. He really didn't. So no one on the ship was allowed to bathe or shave. Now, can you imagine the stink? Now, the person talking to us that we would be in the same condition as the rest of the crew. No bathing and no shaving. Shirley and I could not believe what we were hearing, especially when I would be charged for the launch that brought us to this floating stink pot. So my dad, he had to keep putting out money. They kept asking him for money, I guess, and he just had to keep putting out money, and he was getting a bit ticked off. I then asked the person, "Are you finished?" "Yes," she replied. Well, here's my reply. There is no fucking way that we will not stop bathing or shaving. And as for paying for the launch, that you say I would have to pay for? Not only did the arsehole send me to the wrong country, but I had to have funds sent to enable us to make it here. In the first place. Shirley and I were not on board when the ship was damaged, so I have no intention to follow the rules you have laid down. Now, this is the thing. My dad would yell at Scientologists for acting like Scientologists and tell them that he was a better Scientologist than them and he's not going to listen to anyone. He did that a lot, apparently. A lot. Because Scientology just kind of fueled this fire of narcissism within him. He was just a very good narcissist already, a little border personality, but I think Scientology just fueled that coal and the fire within him. Oh boy. So everyone was the ship was in the condition of liability because they'd backed up and hit some rocks and ruined the propeller and they had to fix it. So everyone was in a condition of they couldn't do anything fun, that they had to just keep working and just being little Sea Org members all day. They could hardly even sleep. And my dad was like, screw this. I'm going to do what I want to do. I just showed up here. Don't you be telling me what I've got to do. So as far as I'm concerned, you can, oh, is that shove it out your ass? You can shove it up your ass if you think I intend to accept this crazy. If you don't like what I have to say, you can put us ashore and and return us home, where I intend to notify every Scientologist what the hell is going on here. So he threw down some threats too. I'll leave this ship, go back to America, and just rip you all to shreds, read you all for filth. Anyway, I won my point. Of course he did. And the restrictions were canceled concerning us. So the rest of the ship were on liability, but my dad and his wife were not. As we were a couple intending to marry, we were given our own cabin. See, that's why he did that. He found her because he wanted to go ashore with a wife, so he had a 2D situation figured out, so he could get his own berthing, because he was very fancy and didn't like other dirty people being around him. He hated being on this prison planet. I don't know why he wanted to live this long. He hated being on this prison planet, and he hated every being upon it, including me. We're all degraded. So he did not enjoy being on this ship. So, as we were a couple intending to marry, we were given our own cabin. We shared with the roaches. We decided that we would give it a couple of weeks. Prior to our joining, the ship had been used as a source of Scientology services to members who wished to achieve the training in the philosophy, but that had all changed, and it was just crew members. At that time, there were younger children aboard, and Shirley worked in the nursery, and I was chipping rust on deck. Okay, his wife didn't like children. They didn't have children. They didn't like me, especially when I was a child. Yeah, it was. This woman took care of children, other people's children. You know what this brings to mind? Jamie Mustard. This woman didn't like children. So I can't imagine her. She didn't have a nurturing inch to her. So I can't imagine her being nurturing to these children. So if anyone remembers Shirley from the good old days, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine you receiving decent childcare from that woman. I apologize. I shouldn't have to. I wasn't really related to, other than that my dad married her, but I'm sure she was not a great childminder. Oh, Shirley worked in the nursery, and I was chipping rust on deck. All this had taken place in 1968, and we're heading for the dry dock to fix the prop. As we approached the entrance to the dry dock, I witnessed the most remarkable scene you could only imagine. As the ship entered the dock, the crew were hanging over the side with the straw brooms in case of scratches. I laughed my head off, as the ship had a bumper about a foot thick for entering narrow channels, where she sailed before being purchased by the crowd of Popeyes. He had no respect for anyone. By the way, after taking over the hunk of junk, it was deemed a false purpose. So after all, yeah, okay, all right. The Spanish dock workers in the dock were amused at the gang of idiots hanging over the side with the straw brooms, and were greeted like Gringo Poco Loco. Hey, Gringo Poco Loco. In Spain, they don't call white people gringos. That's a South American term, but okay, Dad, sure. Now the stupid penalty was lifted, and the crew could once again shave and bathe. Yay! The dock provided the amenities to be used while the ship was in a dry dock. Children were placed in a small hotel close by, and my Shirley was also sent with them to look after them. So sorry. To pass the time, an old-timer, Wally Burgess, and I would practice throwing landmines from the deck to the dock to assist the docking of the ship when returning from a trip. Okay, so this is what I have to explain then. Throwing landmines. My dad explained to me that he used to throw landmines all the time. So, like, I'm a Reiki master, and, you know, like, imagine sending energy to people, right? You can send bang, 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 Care Bears love, different colors, different kind of rays. You know, you can send good energy. If you imagine, if you've got a good imagination, you send people energy, right? Say Reiki or polarity therapy or anything like that. Well, Scientologists believe they can do that. They can like shoot you, bang, 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 with their rays. And my dad used to throw landmines. Landmines are bigger. This is when you've got like a big action to accomplish. See, when I say this out loud, it makes me laugh. I can't believe my dad. So landmines, you know, it's just like bursts of energy that you're sending directionally. Postulates is like a spell. If you've ever read The Secret, and it's the belief that if you just believe it wholeheartedly and you get into that vibration of being with the action or event you want to occur, it will happen, that you can will it into being. Well, that's the same thing. Postulates in Scientology, when you reach the higher levels, you kind of live off your postulates. These are decisions and agreements you make, and you decide, this is how I'm going to live, and this is how I'm going to be, and this is how I want things to be. A postulate is basically a spell. It's like casting spells in Wiccanry. And anyway, so these are the landmines. When my dad says he's sending landmines to the dock, it's not like physical landmines where they're trying to blow things up. These are energetic. Now you can send them to people, and like I've done this. My friend was standing way ahead of me, and I kind of sent him a little, and he turned around real quick and, oh, hey, and he saw me. It's that kind of thing. And I just think that's like this connection that we have with other humans. There are certain people we're connected to that we will be affected by. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation I'm going to have another day. But I hope you understand what I'm trying to say right now. There are some people we're connected to, and we just have this closeness and this other thing that's a bit unexplainable. But anyway, so to pass the time, an old-timer, Wally Burgess, and I would practice throwing landmines from the deck to the dock to assist in docking of the ship when returning from a trip. You know, so they wouldn't bump into any other ship, and they wouldn't bump into the dock, and they wouldn't cause any other reasons to end up in the condition of liability. As soon as the work was completed on the ship's prop, we left and docked in Valencia. Now, my mother remarried a Spaniard, and we moved to Valencia in 1972. My dad, years later, when I came to, when I met up with him, he asked me, he goes, oh, yeah, well, you lived in Valencia, right? Didn't you live in Valencia? And I'm like, yep, 7 years. Oh, well, I came to look for you in Valencia. Oh, Dad, really? Did you? Like, why didn't you find me? It wasn't that flipping hard. Like, everyone in the family knew my phone number. It's not like you could have found me. So anyway, I just thought that was a weird thing he said. Well, it's because he docked in frickin' Valencia. And he just decided that was something that we could connect on. Well, he was in Valencia way before we moved there. So he didn't go there to look for me at all. Just lies. And it's just disappointing when you find things out like that as a daughter. It's just very disappointing. It's more heartbreaking. So as soon as the work was completed on the ship's prop, they left and docked in Valencia. I was approached with the offer of a job in the engine room. I accepted and enjoyed my new workmates, whom I shall mention later. Shirley and I went along with the program. I was chosen to go ashore and locate an oil company for the purpose of buying fuel and other lubricants required in the engine room. This led to a funny situation and some merriment. I found my dad thought he was real funny. He really I think I am. Oh God, I'm his daughter, aren't I found the company and was introduced to two very nice Spanish gentlemen, like most workers in the office. Nice dark blue pants, white shirts, and ties. Why do they like that? They really like boring uniforms, don't they? And this is in the 60s, you guys. It's still boring uniforms back then, same now. I explained the situation to my new friends that the ship was run by green peas and very few professionals. They suggested coming to the ship the next day, visit the engine room, and advise us on what we needed and wanted as to supplies. I told them that when they arrived to ask for me, and they would be escorted aboard. They arrived as promised, and I took them up to the bridge area where they had some cognac. That's very Spanish. I always drink it. My stepdad always drank cognac. Cigar and cognac. We then descended on the inside companionway to the engine room and watched their faces when I introduced them to the chief engineer. The chief engineer was 14. But there are no children in the Sea Org, huh, Mitch Briscoe? The chief engineer of a ship was 14 years old, with his cap on sideways, his face smudged with oil. The two gentlemen looked at each other, thinking I was putting them on. Mark Sabine was the boss, Mark Sabine was the boss, and that youngster knew the job. See, even my dad, that was a 14-year-old, but it's a little body, big person. That youngster knew his job. That's who Mark Sabine was. A 14-year-old chief engineer. Jesus Christ on a cracker. Now, the two officials were amazed that such a young person could have so much knowledge. After completing the meeting, we went then to the inside companionway, back up to the bridge where they had another cognac. As we descended from the bridge down to the other part of the boat that I can't read, they passed by the baby cribs. Oh, the baby cribs and beds were in full view. One of the Spaniards pointed to one of the babies and he said, El Capitan. So they were like making fun of what they just saw, that a child was the chief engineer on a friggin' ship. So that's funny. My dad thought that this is funny enough for him to write down, because that's all normal. It's all normal that a kid is running the ship. So yeah, one of those babies in the crib was probably the captain. So I and the others had a good laugh as we parted from the two officials. Ha ha ha. That was funny, Dad. Now that the ship's prop was fixed, it looked like we were in for a long stay in Valencia. And I miss Valencia. I love Valencia. And I'm going back next year because I said so. I can't wait to go. I love that city. Spain, Valencia during fiestas. 1 week, one whole week is insane. Everyone's on the street. It's so much fun. It's the best place on the planet. And I need to go back. Valencia, Spain. You heard it here, people. As there was only crew of half-wits aboard, there wasn't much in the way of auditing going on, as the people who were more involved after the ship was thrown out of Corfu had all left. So this was after they had the big debacle in Corfu, where they had to run out of there because the people were coming for them, like angry villagers were going to be coming for them. Everything had become stagnant. Shirley and I decided this was not the life we expected. Shirley was from an upper middle class family. See, he's all hoity-toity. Shirley was from an upper middle class family, and I felt responsible for such a letdown, dragging her all the way over here. Well, we sat down to discuss the situation, and we decided to give it until the end of the month, and rather than remain, we would call it a failed mission and return home. I missed the nice places we lived where we could have good food and comfortable beds. Such amenities were not to be found here. Lousy food, cramped quarters infested with roaches. Last night, something of drums went ashore and broke into some sheds on the dock and stole some tools they brought back aboard, claiming they had struck a blow to the enemy. Oh, here we go. Last night, a bunch of bums went ashore and broke into some sheds on the dock and stole some tools they brought back aboard, claiming they had struck a blow at the enemy. This is the crap that was going on most of the... Okay, so yeah, see, a lot of the people apparently weren't just Scientologists. I don't know what these people were doing on board then. I really don't. But they struck a blow to the enemy by running off ship and stealing tools. That's so stupid. This is the crap that was going on, as most of them were... I can't say the word. It's a word we use in England. It's the... equal to the N word in America. WOGS. I'm not going to say it. It's a very disgusting word. But these people were not Scientologists. That's basically what he's saying. He was such a racist, misogynist. That is the term used for those not really Scientologists. Not really Scientologists. I thought it was a term for those who were not. Apparently, that is the term used for those not really Scientologists. So these people on ship were half-assed doing it. I don't know what he's talking about. Just a bunch of idiots. I can hear his voice saying this with a Scottish accent. Just a bunch of idiots. I would describe as degraded beings. See? He would describe as degraded beings. I came to the Royal Scotsman with good intentions and soon realized this was not my group and never would be. Having decided to declare the trip a failed mission and return to an upgrade in our beingness and living, we felt better. As I was now in the engine room with 5 others who were Scientologists, there was some comfort where I would learn how a ship really operates. As everything settled down, all of a sudden there was some commotion and a lot of laughter going on. We stepped outside to find the reason for such glee. The news was that Ron was coming to take over the ship. Whoopee! He actually wrote whoopee. Like it says whoopee. Oh, Jesus walks again. Hallelujah. Okay, Dad, like you went a bit too far writing this. He got real excited writing this. The big man will be here in a few days. Now maybe things will improve, especially the food chain. So far, there was no fruit at all on board. That man was born and lived through the Depression and wars. And he's complaining about fruit not being on board in the 60s. That's how fancy he'd gotten by then. Okay, so he's all excited now. Woohoo! I don't have to go home. Ron's coming, the big man. Jesus walks again. Hallelujah. My dad didn't talk like that. This is hilarious. And he wrote whoopee. Woo. Funny thing happened one night. He crossed this out, and I'm going to read it. I don't know why he crossed this out. A funny thing happened one night. I came off duty from the engine room, and Malcolm Neiman took over. I had just gone to sleep when someone knocked on the door. It was Malcolm. What's wrong? I asked. I think I goofed, he replied. The problem was the boiler. What happened? He really didn't know how. He was a bad writer. He didn't know how to, do the commas and stuff. Very bad writing. What happened? We will use any number. We will use any number to explain. What happened? We will use any number to explain. A ship's boiler is like a pressure cooker. When the boiler drops to, say, 100 pounds, you relight it by turning a valve to get it going. When the gauge reached 200 pounds, you shut it off. Malcolm had forgotten to shut it off. That resulted in the safety caps blowing open, releasing all the water that was blowing out the funnel like a fountain. The engine room has a logbook, just like the logbook in the bridge. Anything that happened had to be documented, such as problems or anything needed or wanted. All of a sudden, we were aware of deep water in the bilges, so any attention to this problem had to be entered in the log. Each one of us had entered the info. Depending on what watch we would have, a different person on charge. One was Herman the German, who did not consider the water on the bilges to be dangerous, so we kept entering it into the logbook before we left. He's just complaining about how someone else does their business. Well, now the shit hit the fan as the water flooded into the engine room, then into the basin beneath the number one generator and blew it. As the damage would be very expensive once again, we were considered in liability. They kept blowing shit up. So they kept getting pulled into liability condition. We were what? We were lined up and told to extend our left arm to have the handcuff attached. They used to put handcuffs on them, guys, back in the day. Instead of the gray rag, we were humiliated with this stupid punishment because they had to also wear a dirty gray rag wrapped around their arm so everyone could see immediately that they were in condition of liability and you couldn't speak to them. They were punished and like they were being shunned. Even though they were in the midst, you weren't allowed to speak to them or have any kind of dealings with them. They just had to go on about their day and you had to ignore them. That's not nice. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Of course, when this sentence was put on us, I went nuts. Refused to have the cuffs put on me or allow my meager salary to be denied us. So my dad was on the meager Sea Org salary, and he's like, you need to pay me, and no, I'm not doing anything you tell me. He's a Scientologist. Can you believe it? He was so freaking headstrong. Oh, my God. Anyway, it did eventually drift away. The lesson to be learned, don't mess with the new lad from the East End of Glasgow. Money. Okay, Dad, he's gangster. The reason we had such a mess being the departure of the Scientologists after the ship was ordered out of Corfu. Because after they had the big debacle in Corfu, a lot of people left the ship. They were like, this is all BS. I'm out of here. See you. Bye. And then a whole bunch of other people came to join. And my dad was one of them. At the time, they were public paying to take courses, and there was auditors on board providing the training. At the time, the ship was in Corfu. Before I came aboard, the ship was using the isle called Corfu, where some weird games were being played. There is a lesson in Scientology known as the overt motivator sequence. He used to talk about this all the time to me. I don't hear a lot of now Scientologists talk about this. There is a lesson in Scientology known as the overt motivator sequence. It explains that you commit an overt act against another, you will pay by pulling in your own form of punishment. Oh, right. See, right. It's like you do something on purpose to pull in whatever. So you're pulling stuff in, but the reason it's there is because you had a motivator. You did something, you committed an overt act. Oh, does it make sense? See, it does to me because had this in my head for so long. I just hope you guys get it. So the overt motivator sequence, it explains that you commit an overt act against another, you will pay by pulling in your own form of punishment. You have committed an overt act against another. Your self-sentence is known as the motivator. There are different viewpoints on this. In witchcraft, ooh, go Dad. In witchcraft, the self-punishment is 3 times worse than the desired out. Did that make any sense to any of you? Any Wiccans in the in the chat there? Basically, in Wiccans, they believe, what you put out, you get in return 3 times. So if you're nasty, you're going to get nastiness 3 times in strength returned to you. So I guess that's what he's trying to explain as the overt motivator sequence. And it's an explanation for how people pull stuff in, or what the Scientologists say, we pull stuff in when stuff happens to us or we get sick. Not knowing how long it would take to find the motivator, the hierarchy on the ship decided to supply the motivator for them. Heavy ethics were applied to the bad guy by tying his hands and some blindfolded, and then thrown overboard in the filthy water where the ship was docked. So this is where they began overboarding people. Okay, Dad. So that was being overboarded as a motivator? That's so gross. I consider this to be cruel and sadistic behavior. Oh, okay. He never said that to me. Because I asked him about this. I'm like, so how did you feel when people were being overboarded? And he just didn't really say much at all. But to him, apparently, see, why couldn't he talk to me? Why couldn't he just answer my questions and be a normal freaking human? Like, Dad, try. Anyway, I consider this to be cruel and sadistic behavior. This was witnessed by the locals. Eventually, the ship was ordered out of Corfu with the order not to return. Yeah, see, the people in Corfu, they're like, what are these people doing? They're freaking sadistic and they're nuts and they're acting crazy. Like, see you bye. The trained and able Scientologists, could you get more Scientology speak? The trained and able Scientologists then left, leaving a bunch of non-Scientologists to provide the running of the Royal Scotsman. I'm glad I was not on the ship when all this stupid game was going on. Everything was a game to my dad, because in Scientology, life is a game. Everything's a game. And I really disliked that he used that term for everything. I would have devoured such nonsense. Oh, no, I would have denounced such nonsense and probably caused havoc. Anyway, when I came aboard, all such heavy ethics did not exist, thanks to my guardian angels. As the ship was having to make changes, it looked like we would be in Valencia for some time, hoping for the return of able auditors that would change the mood. Shirley and I discussed the situation and decided to give it to the end of the month. If there was no improvement, we would declare it a failed mission. He likes saying that a lot, doesn't he? And return home. One night, after I came off my engine room watch and was relieved by Malcolm Neiman, was not in bed very long when there was a knock at the door. Opening the door, there was Malcolm in a panic. What's wrong, buddy? I asked. Sam, I think I goofed. Okay, so that's why he crossed it out. He rewrote it again here. Tell me what happened. The story was blah, blah, blah. Imagine how the system works by observing 2 numbers. Okay, see, this is boring. I already kind of read through this. It has a cap on the left. And how does he remember? He was 96. Like, how do you remember there was a cap on the left from 1961? Like, dude, serious. Or 1963. Okay. Now, we knew that Ron would be aboard. Soon we changed plans, hoping for the best. Things seemed to settle down for a while, except for a couple of incidents. As I stepped onto the well deck, two guys were having a beef. I had no idea what it was about. I never thought it would come to violence, but it did. One guy pulled off and knocked the other cold. The puncher must have had some Dianetics training as how engrams were created. When a person is unconscious, whether it be by an accident or sedation, such as in a hospital, Scientology insists that silence be observed as the analytical mind has shut down, leaving the reactive mind wide open to absorb whatever is going on, not just the pain, but the five senses are all involved. Later on, this event could be brought into present time, causing much discomfort to the victim. The assailant now cupped his hands over his mouth and shouted into the victim's ear, "I must be nice to John." Do you see what he was doing, guys? He was forcing an engram into this person he just knocked out. He just got this person unconscious. So as a Scientologist, he knew to say something to him because it's implanting this order. It's like downloading something into him. So he cupped his hand. He's like, "You got to be nice to John. So you got to be nice to me." This behavior I would describe as Black Scientology. Such a display could have been funny, if not so tragic. So in Scientology, if someone hurts themselves, if you say I'm in the room with three people and I walk across the room and I stub my little toe, everyone would go silent. Now I would have to try to hold in the pain, just kind of ignore the pain, and the pain would go away because it's not really there anyway. But everyone else in the room would go quiet. Now, another thing I would do is, if my toe is still throbbing, is to go back to that couch where I hit it and keep touching my little toe where I hurt myself to the couch where I hit it, and just keep recontacting that toe to that couch, that toe to that couch, that toe, until the pain goes away. And then if still things aren't very right, then my dad would bring me to present time, like, go touch that wall. And I'm like, "What do you make me touch a fucking wall?" But I would go and touch the wall because that brings you back to present time, and then you forget about that pain. It's gone. "Well, no, my toe's still throbbing, but I have to act like it doesn't hurt anymore because you're a Scientologist and you're not going to help me." That's basically it. Wow. So my dad wrote that down. That's Black Scientology. I guess that's new character unlocked. So, guys, don't do that. Don't knock people out and then yell things in their ear. Okay? Don't do that. It's not nice. It's not friendly, and it's not a good way to go. We're not trying to do these things anymore. Okay, Dad. Now, we got the news Ron will arrive tomorrow evening, and we were ordered to be in the number 1 hold at 7 p.m. At last, the moment had arrived. I was standing just inside the door. I usually place myself, if I had to beat a retreat. I don't know what that means. All at once, he made his entrance. Dun, dun, dun. With his coat over his shoulders, walking very fast. To me, it was like a movie shoot. The star makes a dramatic entrance through the door. Well, obviously, my dad already had a view of him as like, this guy's amazing. This guy is just, he's God. Wow, look at him walking in. What a charm with his rotten teeth. He strode, and he spelt strode wrong. He strode to the end of the room, turned and said a few words. "The last time I was here, we met in the number 2 hold. This time in number 1 hold. At least we're going forward. Okay, LRH. I didn't know how I felt on my first impression of the Great One. The Great One. Like, seriously? But it was changed the following morning. I was standing outside the so-called medical office to have a new dressing on my hand. He was PTS, Dad. The previous day, some vendor on the dock ride was sitting selling switchblade knives to the young ones aboard. Okay, the previous day, some vendor on the dockside was selling switchblade knives to the young ones aboard. His daughter, Suzette, had purchased one. Okay, Dustin, no, I'm doing a live. So LRH's daughter, Suzette, had bought a switchblade. You go, girl. Ninja. Who was about 12 years old. She came towards me, pointing something at me. We were always playing games, so I put my left hand in defense against her attack. She pressed the button, releasing the blade, which then pierced the small muscle under my something. As my hands were messy with grease, it infected immediately. Wow, Suzette poked my dad with a knife. Go, Suzette! What? God, Dad, your writing's really bad. I was wounded to have a clean dressing on the small wound. About 20 feet down, the working Ron was talking to a couple of crew members. As I was looking at the back of his head, I thought I would try a little game. Here he goes. As I was looking at the back of his head, I thought I would try a little game. Putting my attention on Ron, I put out, "Why don't you come and talk to me?" Okay, do you see he's doing this? He's doing the mind game thing. He's Jedi sending messages. He's Vulcanizing L. Ron Hubbard. I put all my attention on Ron. I put out, "Why don't you come and talk to me?" To my amazement, his head turned and he walked up to me. "Hello," he said in his baritone voice. Oh, wait. "Hello, Supreme Ruler." In his baritone voice. "Hello, sir," I replied. He then shook me another question. "What level OT are you?" I was knocked out by his observation. "Ron has perceived me to be OT. What an honor. Not an academic OT, but an OT just the same." "Sir, I appreciate your observation, but afraid I have never reached that level." "What are you then?" asked Ron. My reply, grade 4 release and class 4 auditor. "Something," he replied. Why can't you do grade 5? "Sir, I am new on the ship. There are 300 people here and we only have one auditor. Alex Sobieski? Elron answered, "Go and do grade 5. Thinking he was playing with my head, I assured him as he left, "No problem." So apparently my LRH told my dad to go ahead and do other training that he was supposedly better for. That my dad was, "Oh, look, he could see the OT in me. I'm not even an OT yet." And he saw my magicalness of my beingness, of magicness. The following day, while I was in the engine room, one of the messengers came down to me and advised me to have a good lunch as I was being audited on level 5. Wow, I thought, you got to get your rudiments and you got to be properly fed and you got to be hydrated and you got to be you had to have good sleep and you have to be in a good mood to be audited. So they told him to eat well for tomorrow. Sparta. Wow, I thought. He was serious, as I always ran easily on auditing. It only took a few hours with tremendous results. I was completely blown out of my head and felt I had just arrived onto the planet. Things began to settle down with Ron being around. I found myself becoming very close to him and enjoyed the talks we had. Shirley was working with the kids and never complained. Yeah, because she hardly ever did anything with them, probably. That's why. Her only problem was getting clean clothes. She had to wash them in the bathtub and hang them up to dry in the boiler room. Now that Ron was here, I missed my chats with Mary Sue. She used to go ashore. We used to go ashore, have dinner, and visit with me in the engine room. As I was on watch till midnight, she would sit in the engine room and chat. One of the first suggestions by Ron was to have boat drills in the morning. Bill Robinson, isn't that Captain Bill? That was Captain Bill, huh? Crazy Captain Bill. Bill Robinson, chief officer, gathered up a few of his crew, and we proceeded to unshore, do something to the number one boat. I have no idea. Okay, I've reached page 14. I think that might be enough for today, you guys. I think I'm going to go look at some of the questions, if that's okay with y'all, because there's a lot of stuff going on here. Oh, and I don't have any mods. I don't have anyone starring anything. Hello, Sacripidus, Tennessee Jenny, Nico Yeg Squirrel, Watts05, Sue Irwin. Oh my God, Jim Ronan. Hey, love. Hi, Lady J now, Lady Victoria, Paralyzed to Paralyzed. Wow, look at all you guys in here. Question, how Scientology reconcile in their head saving the planet but not taking care of it like climate or people? Kate, that's exactly, like, seriously. How are you saving a planet by being stuck in a building reading books all day and just writing snitch notes on everyone? That's all you're doing is writing snitch notes on everyone and shuffling papers around and reading. That's all you're doing is reading and getting audited, and that's all that's happening. How are you saving the planet? They don't care about the climate. They're not going to be here long. This is Tigiak. They're here just for this round. They'll be somewhere else another time after they drop the body here. They might come back here. It's up to them. My dad said he wasn't coming back to this prison planet. He was going somewhere else. He wouldn't tell me where. I asked him, are you going to Target too? He was not amused. I wanted to know, like, is that where you go? If you don't go to the implant station, where do you go? If you pick and choose, are you going to Target too? He didn't like that. Was your mom ever a part of Scientology? No. And that's what happened. That's why we were sent away. My dad wanted to do Scientology, and he wanted his wife, my mom, to do Scientology. She went down to the DC org, sat on the cans, and I tried to do one of the courses or get some auditing, and she said she couldn't. She goes, there's such nonsense. I just couldn't go with what they were telling me. It didn't make any sense to me. So that's where everything fell apart. And Scientology told my dad to get rid of us because he had to save this prison planet, and we were in the way. I was Dev T. So that's why I had a T-shirt made that says Dev T on it, Develop Traffic, because basically that's what I was to my dad. I was just in the way of him accomplishing Scientology. So I was sent off. And some things happened, and that will be another story. Some of you know already, but that will be another story for another day because I don't want to start crying today. Lady Victoria, hello. I've heard, and I met a gentleman from England, and he seemed quite odd himself. Well, if just being British, we are a bit odd. We're different. Lost Mittens. Hey, Tampa Bay man. Hey, Bob. Terry Morgan, Deanna Ross, Kathy Scoggins. Thanks, guys. Oh, you remember, Dina, you remember these people? Deanna or Dina? I'm sorry. I hope I'm not saying your name wrong. You remember some of these people? Oh, I would like to chat with you. Please email me at feralcherylontheloose@gmail.com. Wow. I know. See, no one remembers my dad. And he has this really strong Scottish accent. When Janice Gillam Grady came to Clearwater, I popped in to see her. She was doing a little meet and greet. And I asked her, like, do you remember my dad? A grumpy old Scottish guy in the engine room. She's like, no. And that's basically because he wasn't on the ship too long. He blew 3 times, apparently. Okay, that's really interesting. Right. So, yeah, my dad left me this thing. He wanted me to know in a weird way. Right. So, even though my dad wouldn't communicate with me in this lifetime, and he knew I had questions about his story in Scientology, like his time in Scientology. What did you do? Where did you go? What happened? Like, I wanted him to explain his journey to me. I'm a very spiritual person. I would have totally gone with whatever he would have told me. But I couldn't break through that wall that LRH built. Oh, Nona Boss. Hey, Marty. I've got some things. Did I send them to you yet? I'm sending you some stuff. I've got to get to the post office. Sorry, your dad didn't show you the love you deserve. No, I know it's, yeah, I mean, I didn't enjoy growing up without a dad because the men that took his place were awful. But, you know, I am who I am now, and I'm all right, I think. So I got through it. If I do fall asleep, it's because how late it is here in England. I know it's late in England. I'm sorry, guys. If not, replay crew tomorrow if you feel like you need to. But I can talk the ears off an elephant, and my monotone voice might put you to sleep. Geekadelic Live. Oh, Geekadelic. Okay, so that's nice. You're telling everyone to check out someone else while my live's going on. Okay. My dad grew up in the Gorbals. He did. Calton, Glasgow, where the umbrella is. My dad's family are the Billaboys. The Billy Fullerton, that's my dad's uncle. So my dad grew up in the Gorbals. Yes, he did. Oh, Melody, I need to comment on how beautiful your hair is today with all those ringlets. Thank you. It's very humid here today, so I'm frizzied. Thank you for standing up for the good guys on the other channel. Oh, yeah, Socrapetus. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost too hot to breathe. It's awful here. It's awful. Sorry, guys. I don't even know how to bring up the chat thing. I'm so bad at this. I'm not even on the live chat. I'm on the top chat. I'm such a ding-dong. Oh, your mom and dad are both from the Gorbals? I bet you our families know each other. If you know any Fullertons in that area, ooh, that'd be us. Oh, Pat. Oh, hey, love. Paul McCartney's song "In a World Without Love" was not suited for the Beatles. Oh. Sir Crepidus. Feral Cheryl goes to prove we should not underestimate the power of indoctrination and conditioning. To leave his family behind to save the planet is hard for most people to understand. So that's the thing. It's really, I mean, I have yelled at some Scientologists, but I yell out, like, call your mom and you're wasting your time. You don't have any OT powers. I'm not yelling. My family were all Scientologists, so it's really hard for me to call them all names because I know they really mean well. They really want to save this planet, you guys. They really do want to save mankind. They want to save mankind. They're not. They don't know they're not doing it. They're not accomplishing anything. But that's in their heart. That's their intention. Every day when they wake up, they've got to keep Scientology working because when they do, they're saving this planet. That's a very noble intention to have. However, they also get conditioned and hypnotized into the auditing, where if they have a problem, anything in their life, they need auditing, because that afterwards they release dopamine after they get everything out, like we would in any like therapeutic session, a talk session. You get this release, and it's your own body releasing neurotransmitters, releasing chemicals, so you feel good. It releases endorphins and dopamine. So just the act of doing that auditing session will make you, oh, you feel relieved now. Well, of course, if that happens every time, you're going to keep going back to doing that to get your auditing so you can feel better. So that's what happens a lot. You want to save the planet, and you just stubbed your toe, and now you've got to go get auditing because you think you're PTS, and you've got to figure out who, why, where in your life so that things go right. Everything has to be perfect all the time. You are homo novus, and you have postulates, and you're in agreement with things, and things should be going properly. So, yeah, having a Scientology dad was real hard, because I could never make it go right. So that's why a lot of the times I do a lot of stupid stuff. Like, there's a lot of darkness behind all this. I'm just trying to keep it light right now and trying to keep you guys distracted from other stuff going on. But yeah, got to bring it back to Scientology, because Scientology is damaging. It's a damaging practice. And like I said, I don't think the tech will die. People are still using the tech outside of the brick and mortar stupid buildings that Scientologists are stuck in. We got to get rid of that. We got to get rid of the brick and mortar Scientology that David Miscavige is running. We got to have that Scientology church shut down. Like I said, I don't think the tech will end, because people are still doing the tech, using the tech outside, and it's making them feel good. They're getting their wins and getting through. Everything's fine, and no one hears about them, and they're not causing any problems, and everyone's happy. And that's how it should be, I think. Believe in what you want to believe. Do what you want to do. You do you, boo. Some alohatology for everyone. Where's my spatula? Gosh dang it. I think it's in my bag. All I have right now is my shiny orb. But you guys, we got to keep bringing it back to Scientology, because that's what's damaging children. That's what's damaging the elders. That's what's damaging a lot of people's, grown-up people's minds. So that's what I wanted to bring it back to. This stuff ruined my life. It's ruined lots of other people's lives. We hear about them every day. I hope I'm not overstepping on anyone else's life right now. But it's Scientology isn't great. So if we can get out there and protest, let's do it. If you can't get out there and protest, every single one of you that's in the chat with me, you are there with me protesting. I feel you. I feel the power of you within me. Ooh, that sounds a bit naughty. But every time I see a number of people in my chat, I know that there are people there that have the same intentions, good-hearted intentions I do. I don't want any child to be hurt or damaged anymore by this stupid religion. I want people to come to their senses. Yes, your family can do Scientology. Stop making your kid do stupid, weird crap that's damaging, that's bad for them, especially the purification. Oh, my God, I can't even. So thank you for being in the chat. Thank you for always being there for me. I feel you with me when I'm out there. Write letters to your Congress people, to your senators, emails. Let them know about the damages of Scientology nicely. If we do it calmly and nicely, people will read our things, and maybe someone will do something eventually. But we just got to keep attacking this from every area, every corner, every side we can. We just got to come at it from every corner of the globe with every loving intention. like George Massey did the letter to Child USA, and he is keeping on that. He's just got that whole thing wrapped up, and he's working on that. We can go and join in with him. Any other creator you like, any other streamer that you think is absolutely doing it for you, is your cup of tea, follow them. You don't have to become a member if you can't. You don't have to send them super chats if you can't. Just be in there. Be in there for them and leaving a comment, clicking the like and the subscribe. Always leave a comment, please. Put a little, if you've got nothing to say, if I'm boring, just at least put a squirrel in the comment. It's good for the algorithm. You know, little things like this. You can help streamers out, Scientology protesting streamers, all kinds of way. Dusty Soda, there's my brother. Dusty will do it for you. He sure will. Him and his soda dispenser. He's got that on lock. I love my Dusty brother. He's such a good guy. You guys should please make sure you follow him. And please follow Hey Carrie Ann. She's amazing. I love watching her. She's such a sweetheart. Fluff a squirrel. Go to sptv.space and see who's live at any given moment and jump in and leave a little comment. Just leaving a comment. Even if you don't stay, just click the likes and stuff and leave a comment for everyone. Because there's so many now. There's so many people to watch. I can't even keep up. That's why, thank God, Natalie's on every morning. She helps, you know, catch up with everything that's going on. Naughty and feral. You know it. Always. So just be there for people. Just keep coming in and spreading some love in the chat and being nice to each other. Because I don't have any mods yet. Well, I do. I have Dusty. Okay, he's in there now. Okay, good. But yeah, that's the way you can help us. We all do different things. We all come from different backgrounds, different areas of life. And it's really interesting, I think, that there are so many of us now doing all this weird stuff. I've wanted to do this for a while, and I'm glad I finally got to do it. It's too hot outside to go. I've been wanting to go downtown all week to protest, but it's just too hot. It's raining, like it's thunder and lightning raining. So I'm not going outside. Not doing it. So hopefully that will happen soon enough. But I will continue reading my dad's story because I think it's really interesting. I hope you guys do too. And on some guy that used to hang out with LRH, who really loved LRH and not his daughter. Happens sometimes. What can I say? Scientology. That's why we got to beat it, because we got to make sure families stay together. They're not disconnected from, and they love each other properly, the way humans do. So I love you all so much. Thank you for being with me. That's an hour and a half I've done. Wow, I didn't think I was going to be on that long. No, well, I'm probably monetized. I just haven't set up the whole thing just yet. Is that what I'm supposed to do? Yeah, I think I have to set something up. But see, I'm not here for the money. I'm doing this because I want to bring down Scientology. I'm not here for the money. I could use it because this stuff's expensive. I have to buy new lights because my lighting's so bad. And look at this. I hate this ring thing in my glasses. So stuff is happening, and hopefully I'll be getting a little bigger, I hope, so I can afford to properly monetize and see the lighting, how it changes. It's really crap. It's really bad. Anyway, my loves, I need a cup of tea so bad. Thank you all so much for joining me in this first instance of Tales from the Crypt, my dad's story. I really love you all. Barbara, I'll be seeing you in a couple of days. I'm going to send you those landmines. Everyone, send love landmines to everyone. Use your gun. Send those love landmines. And be good to each other.